So first, let's check out what we are going to create today. Hey everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome to After Effects Beginners Tutorial Series. So before I begin, if you guys are new here, then please consider subscribing and make sure to press that bell icon so that you never miss another amazing video like this. So without wasting any further ado, let's get started. Now if you haven't watched the previous part, I would totally recommend it, so you can click here to watch it right now, or you can click the link in the description below. Alright, so right now I'm in After Effects, and as you can see that I've already imported a logo file. Now you can use any type of logo that you want. I'm using this logo, which is a PNG file, so it has a transparent background. Now the first thing that we are going to create is a composition. So let's go to composition, new comp, and let's call this main. Width and height will be 1920 by 1080, frame rate 30 fps, and duration you can go with 10 seconds. Just click on OK. Now we are going to create another composition. So let's go to comp, and for this one we are going to call this logo, and all the things will remain same. Just click on OK. So now we have both the composition, and first I'm going to open up the main comp and I'm going to close this logo comp. So in this one we are going to create a basic shapes and animation. So first let's make it to fit up to 100%, and now we are going to create a background. So first we are going to create a solid. So you can do it by simply right clicking, then under new you can click on solid, and from here you can change the color. So let's pick some off-white color, just like this. Now you can also rename it to BG for background. Just click on OK. So now we have this background over here. Now let's add some shapes to this. So first I'm going to go to the shape tool, and if you click and hold, you can see it will give you different type of shape tools. So you can pick whatever you want. If you want to create a rectangle, square, or ellipse. So for this example I'm going to use a polygon tool. So this is going to give us a big advantage that if you want to change the shape, all we have to do is just change the number of sides. So once you have selected the shape tool, then you can click anywhere you want and you can just simply drag. You can hold on the shift key so that it will make a perfect shape just like this. So once the shape has been created, we don't want it to have a fill. So in order to remove the fill, all you have to do is just simply go over here and just make sure to click on this text, not on this color. Just click on the text and it will give you this dialog box. So from here we are going to select this, which is none, and after that just simply click on OK. Now our shape only has the stroke, so you can increase the stroke width using this parameter, but for now let's leave it to this. And now I'm going to change the number of sides. So you can select the layer and you can go under the polystar properties, and from here you can see we have this option called points. So I'm going to make this a circle, so I'm going to increase this points to something like 50. So now we have this circle. So again I can select the layer, then you can make its anchor point in the center by simply holding down the control key or command key. If you are on Mac, then you can double click on this pen anchor tool and it will make the anchor point in the center. Now once it is in the center, I'm going to simply align this into the center of this composition using this align panel. And again, if you are not able to see this panel, then you can go to Windows and from here you can enable this. So now we are pretty much done with our shape layer. So let's animate it. So for the animation I'm going to use this property called trim path. So you can simply click on add, and from here you can see we have this option called trim path. So if I click on this, and it will add the trim path property. Now we can go under it and you can see we have these two options called end and start. So trim path is basically used to animate the strokes of any layer or the line. So here you can see that as I'm changing the parameters, it is animating the line. So we are going to create the animation using this. So in the beginning I'm going to add the keyframes on both the properties. So both the values are at 0. Now I'm going to move this to somewhere around 2 seconds, and I'm going to change these to 100 on both the properties as well. So you will notice that nothing is happening because both the properties are animating at the same point. So all we have to do is just simply select the top property, which is the start one, and I'm going to simply offset it by using a couple of frames. So if I play back, now you can see that we have an animated line. So in order to make it more interesting, I'm going to select the keyframes. Then you can press F9 to easy ease them. Now after easy ease, you can go under the graph editor. Just make sure that the keyframes are selected. Then you can click on the graph editor and it will take you inside the graph. Now if your graph looks different, then make sure that you are in the edit speed graph. So after that you can click and drag and select these handles. Now you can just play around with the curve and you can see what looks good. So yeah, I think this is looking good. Yeah, so I'm going to use this one. So once you are happy with your animation, you can close everything up. And now we are going to duplicate it and offset the layer. So in order to duplicate the layer, all you have to do is just simply select the layer. Then you can press Ctrl D to duplicate it. But before that, let's rename this layer. So you can select the layer, then you can press Enter or Return on your keyboard. Then you can type circle and just type 1. And now we are going to duplicate this by pressing Ctrl D. So now you can see that it has created 2 copies. And I'm going to select the top one and going to press S and let's just scale it up. So now you can see that we have 2 lines and we are going to offset this more. But before that, let's create more copies. So I'm going to select this one, press Ctrl D, and again I'm going to scale this one up as well. Now you can see that we are able to see these jagged lines. So in order to fix that, you can increase the number count. So let's go under the shape and under the content, polypath star, and from here I'm going to increase the count. So let's set this to 100, just like this. You can do the same thing on all the layers so that you have a smooth circle. Now let's add more variation to them. So I'm going to select the top layer, then make sure that you have selected the polygon tool, and now I'm going to increase its stroke, something like this. Now I can also select the layer, press R, and let's add a rotation somewhere around here, and I'm going to do the same thing. So let's select the second one and I'm going to make this really thin, then press R and let's rotate it something like this. Let's do the same thing for this one and I'm going to scale this up a little bit, and let's add this stroke, and again you can select the layer, then press R and let's rotate this something like this. So now if I play back, here you can see that we have this kind of animation which is looking good. Now if you want to add more variations, there is one more thing that you can do. So you can select the layer, then you can press U on the keyboard. Now you will notice that we have offset these keyframes, and now if I move them really further apart, so here you can see that we have created a different kind of animation. So it's completely up to you. You can make them come closer so that it will give you a really short line, something like this, or you can make them move apart so that it will give you a really long trailing line. So now let's add more of these shape layers. So again I'm going to select the top one, press Ctrl D, and let's scale this up, and I'm going to lower down its stroke, something like this. Now let's add a variation by using the rotation. Now let me just zoom out so that I can see my view. That's completely up to you. You can add whatever number of shapes you want. So just simply select the layer, press Ctrl D to duplicate it, and then you can either scale it up or scale it down, however you want. Just like this. Just add some variation so that you have this kind of animation which is looking good. Now there's one more thing that you can do. So for example, I want this layer to move from the opposite side. So all I have to do is just simply select the layer. So it's this one. Then you can press S on the keyboard. Now you can uncheck this constraint property, and from here we are going to add a negative in front of the X value. So all the things will remain same, just we have added the negative value. So now it has flipped our shape. So here you can see that now it's moving from the different direction. Now alternatively, if you don't want to do this, you can do one more thing. You can just simply select the layer, you can right click, and under the transform you can flip the layer just like this. So now it will do the same thing that we just did with the scale property. So in this way you can add some variation to this and add more shapes to this one. Now I'm going to fast forward this and I'm going to add bunch of these lines. Now I have created bunch of shape layers and you can see that the full animation is looking something like this. And there's one more thing that you can do. You can just simply select some of the layers and just move them randomly so that it will add more variation to your animation. Just like this. So now they will start with a little bit of offset. So now if I play back, here you can see that we have added more variation. Now it's looking much better. Now again we are able to see some of these gaps, so you can fill them by simply duplicating the layers and then just adjusting them. So now we are pretty much done with these circles, and let's add one more shape layer to this. So I'm going to select this polygon tool, and for this one we are going to select the simple rectangle tool and just simply select this one, and you can click and drag. Now you can hold down the shift key so that it will make a perfect square. You can also hold down the control key so that it will scale it up from the center, just like this. So let's create the square and I'm going to align it in the center of this composition. Now on this one we need the fill. So in order to enable the fill, all you have to do is just simply go to the fill, and from here you can click on the solid color and we can remove the stroke. So let's make it 0. Now you can scale this up something like this. So here you can see we have this kind of animation. Now our last step is to animate this square, but before that I'm going to move its anchor point. So you can select the square layer, then select the pan anchor tool, and you can enable the snapping so that you can select the anchor point and it will just snap to this endpoint, just like this. So now you can select the layer and let's animate it so that it's not visible in the beginning. So you can add a keyframe, and now let's move to the very beginning and let's change the value to 0. So here you can see that our square is scaling up. Now again you can select the layers, then press F9 and just tweak the graph. So now you can see that we have created this scale animation, and now let's add more animation to this. So in order to do that, we are going to create a new null. So let's right click, go to new, and from here you can choose the null object. So now we can animate the null object, and all the layers which will be parented to this will be animated as well. So first let's select all the layers, and I'm going to parent them using this option. So if you're not able to see the parent and link option, you can just simply right click, and under the columns you can enable this. So once you have enabled it, you can simply select all the layers, then pick whip them, and then just parent it to the null object. So from here you can see that under the layer select option, it has been parented to the null one. So we can animate the null one, and you can see that all the animations will be applied. So you can scale it up, rotate it, or whatever you want. So we are going to add a simple rotation animation. So let's add a keyframe over here, and I'm going to move my timeline indicator to somewhere around 4 seconds. Then I'm going to change the rotation value to just 1. So again I'm going to select the keyframes, then you can press F9. Then let's go to the graph editor and let's tweak the graph to look something like this. So now if I play back, here you can see that we have this really amazing animation. So now let's add some color to this. So it's totally up to you. You can add whatever color you want. If you want to go with this black and white look, you can do that. So let's apply some color to this. So let's select one of the shape layers. Let's select this one. Yeah. So on this one, we are going to apply an effect called gradient ramp. So you can just search for gradient ramp and just drag it onto this layer. And under the effects and control, we are going to change the color. So let's select these two colors. Just like this. So now we are pretty much happy with this color, and you can add different colors to different shapes. It's totally up to you, or you can just simply select this effect and then press Ctrl C to copy this effect. And after that you can select all the layers. Now I'm not going to select the shape layer 1, which is our square, and I'm going to press Ctrl V to apply the effect onto this all the other layers. So now you can see that we have added some really nice gradient effect to them, just like this. Now if you want to change color of some of the layers, you can select them and then you can tweak them, just like this. So now you can see that we have added some variation to the colors. Now it's totally up to you. I'm not going to do this. So here we are pretty much done with this animation. Now let's add our logo. So for that I'm going to open up the projects panel, and from here I'm going to open up the logo comp, and let's just simply drag our logo into this composition, just like this. Now you can select the logo, press S to scale this up or down, just like this. Now let's go back to the main comp, and I'm going to simply drag our logo composition to this one, just like this. Now you can select the comp and you can press S so that we can scale it down, that it is now fitting our square, just like this. Now we can place this logo layer below this shape layer so that it's not visible. And once the animation has stopped, so I can select this one, press U, so you can see that the animation is stopping. And at this point we are going to animate our shape layer. So select the layer, press S, let's add a keyframe, and again let's uncheck these properties and let's move it somewhere around here. And I'm going to change the Y value to 0 so that the shape will scale down, just like this. Now again you can select the keyframes, then you can check the graph and you can tweak it to look something like this. So now if I play back, here you can see we have created this kind of animation. So it is looking good. Now let's do one more thing. I'm going to select the logo layer and I'm going to parent it to the null as well. So here you can see that at the end it has this really small rotation, just like this. So now we are pretty much done with this animation, and let me just play the full animation one time. So here you can see that we have created this really amazing logo animation. Now let's add our text, but before that I'm going to create another solid. So just right click and just select the solid, and on this one I'm going to change the color to something like this, and then just simply click on OK. Now we are going to animate its position. So press P on the keyboard for position, and let's add a keyframe, and I'm going to select the square. So let's press U on the keyboard, and in the beginning I want this to be at the top, just like this. Again we can select the keyframes, then press F9, then you can go to the graph editor and you can make it to look something like this. Yeah, so I think this is looking good. Again we are going to place it below the logo, and we can probably trim it. So now all we have to do is just simply adjust the keyframes. So just simply tweak the keyframes in the graph editor so that your animation matches the logo reveal. Just like this. So I think this is looking good. Now let's add our text. So in order to add the text, all you have to do is just simply select the text tool. Then you can click anywhere you want and you can type whatever you want. So I'm going to type AD motions, and after that you can select the text and again use the align panel to align it in the middle of this comp. And after that I can select this and then press P for position, and let's add a position keyframe and let's move it somewhere around here. And at this point I'm going to move it to something like this. Also I'm going to add some position animation to the logo as well. So we want this logo to move slightly upwards. So let's add a keyframe and let's move it, not just the text according to this. Now again you can select both the keyframes, then press F9. And again let's tweak the graph. Something like this. So now if I go back, here you can see that we have the animation. Now let's cut this text so that it's visible only after this is revealed. So till this point we don't need to see our text, so I'm going to simply drag the endpoint just like this, zoom in, and let's do it something like this. So now you can see that we have added our text as well. So if I play the whole animation, so there you can see now we have created some really amazing logo reveal animation just like this. And if you want to change the logo, all you have to do is just go under the logo comp and you can pick different logo over here. You can just simply drag it into this composition and it will automatically update the logo. You can also change the text. You can double click and you can type whatever you want. And just like this, your text will be updated. Now remember, to create these circles, we use the polygon tool. Now if you want to change the shape, all you have to do is just simply go under the shape layer. Then under the content, you can change the number of points. So let's change this to 4. So now we have a square. So you can change the number of points in all of these layers and you will get a completely different animation. So let me just quickly do that. Now you don't have to scroll down each of these shape layers and then change the value. You can do one more thing. You can select all these layers. Then under the search panel, you can type points. And from here we can see that it has given us all the points. So all you have to do is just simply change them to 4. Just like this. So now if I go back, here you can see that we have created this kind of animation. Now it's looking weird because we have added the rotation to these values as well. So you can press R and let's change the rotation to 0 for all of these. And now all you have to do is just simply play around with the scale. So now if I play back, here you can see that we have completely changed our animation by simply changing the number of points. So in this way you can change the points to whatever you want and you can have different looks. Now there's one more thing that you can do. You can apply some text animation which you learned in the previous chapter. So you will have a really nice text reveal over here. Now there's one more thing that you can do to change the look of this animation. So select all these circle layers, then you can right click, pre-compose, and let's call this animation. Just click on OK. Now once we have created this, just make sure to parent it to the null object. So if I play back, you will notice that it has cut our edges. So in order to fix that, all you have to do is just simply click on this collapse transformation option. So now if I play back, here you can see that we have our animation back. So now if I play back, here you can see that we have our previous animation. Now in order to change its look, what you can do is you can simply select the layer, then press Ctrl D to duplicate this. And on this one, we are going to apply an effect called fill. Just simply drag it onto this layer. Then you can change the color to black. And after that, search for another effect called CC Radial Fast Blur. And just simply drag it onto this layer. So now you can see we have added some really nice shadow. So we are going to play with some of these settings. So first I'm going to change the center and let's move it to somewhere around here. You can increase the shadow by using the amount slider. So let's move it somewhere around here. Now if you think that it's too dark, you can select the layer, press T and lower down its opacity. Something like this. So now you can see that we have some really nice shadow going on. So it is giving a 3D effect to this one, just like this. Now you can play around with the position of this effect. So if I place it over here, now you can see that we have this really amazing shadow going on. Now you can play around with its position. So I think at the top it looks good. So here you can see that we have created this really amazing animation in After Effects. So you can play around with this and you can add different shape layers. It's completely up to you. Now I'm going to leave this up to you, so you can play around with this animation. You can add different shapes to give it a different look. It's completely experimental. The more you practice with this one, the more good you will get with the logo reveal animations. So that's it for this chapter. My name is Abhishek and I'll see you in the next one.